So this paper will be called, oh, that looks like a different title than what I have.
Oh, no, that's just my first slide, or no? Yeah, that is that, here we go.
There we go, analyzing and replicating the internet genre hyperpop. And Cullen Burke is a double major here, undergraduate, composition student and engineering at the University of Tennessee. So let's welcome Cullen Burke.
Thanks for coming for this. Quick heads up beforehand, two things. One, I had to do this in HTML, or switch it out to HTML, so it's a little bit laggy and glitchy, but it's the way I had to do it with my setup. So bear with me with that. I got one. Sorry. And just a heads up, one of my slides has some, like, not the worst, but some flashing images, so if you're photosensitive, I'll let you know beforehand and you can head out. Let's get into it. So this is, if I can pull this up properly. There we go. There we go. Okay, so this is analyzing and replicating the internet genre hyperpop. Let's get into what hyperpop is first. Hyperpop is a caricature as well as a deconstruction of pop, sort of taking every knob and turning it to 11. Some notable artists are 100 gecs, Sophie, Clarence Clarity, and Vectroid. I'm going to focus on 100 gecs and Sophie a lot. And an important thing to note, Laura Less of 100 gecs and Sophie are both trans women, and that's a large part of my presentation. And in addition to that, so I want to start off, here we go. So a lot of key elements of hyperpop come from gender dysphoria of these trans women. Gender dysphoria is the distress that a person feels due to a mismatch between their gender identity and their sex assigned at birth. It's also shaped by the culture and music of the internet, so meme culture and stuff like that. So let's get into Nightcore, Vaporwave, and meme culture. First of all, let's talk about Nightcore. Nightcore is a phenomenon in the online anime community where you take existing popular songs and speed them up to sort of replicate the sound of Japanese pop. So here's an example. Let's play. Of Hey Soul Sister, Nightcore 5. The pitching up in speed comes from sort of Japanese pop has higher pitched vocals generally and the faster tempo. It's often the butt of jokes online because it's weird and sort of this part of like the anime community online. It's generally from around 2010 to 2014 was when when Nightcore sort of first happened. Another thing that influences hyperpop is vaporwave. Which I'm sure you all know this song. It'll play. Vaporwave is slowed down and chopped up music of the mid to late 90s that functions as a caricature of that music and capitalism and consumerism in general. That sort of music is what you would hear during commercials and in malls. It's a progenitor of hyperpop. So there's a similar philosophy in that it's this taking this music and modifying it in a way, sort of deconstruction of the music, but as opposed to hyperpop, which creates entirely new music in order to parody pop, vaporwave is the opposite, where it takes the music and modifies it in order to make fun of it. This is from the album Floor Shop by Macintosh Plus, who's another name for Vectroid, and Vectroid also has sort of recently put out more stuff closer to the vein of hyperpop. An important thing to note, Vectroid / Macintosh Plus is also a trans woman. And hyperpop is also influenced very largely by meme culture. Sort of how memes have developed from the 2010s to present day follows the progression of pop to hyperpop. In that current memes, like humor is derived from this absurdity and surrealism, sort of a parody of the poor quality of older memes. They're like these cyclical references where the original reference is lost and it sort of becomes post-ironic, the concept of post-irony, where you're doing something ironically for so long that it becomes genuine. And sort sort of current memes and hyperpop sort of follow that trajectory, where you start off as caricaturizing pop, but it becomes its own musical genre that's not just parody. As an example, here's a meme posted August 27th, 2012, and here's a meme posted in 2019. And you can see that they share the same DNA. You have the impact font, or the impact text on top of like an image macro, making some sort of joke. But this is the humor. If you don't understand meme culture, if you're an alien that came to Earth, you wouldn't understand what this means. This wouldn't be funny. But it's funny because it's a deconstruction of that. And you know, sort of the absurd, like this image if you hate racism. What does that mean? That's not a joke. That's like a parody of so many different things. Another example of more, this is the flashing thing, so if you're photosensitive, feel free to leave the room. But if not, I'll play this. This is a video example that audio sort of aligns with what I'm talking about, hyperpop and the distortion. Oh, that was all the way down.
Sensitive, yeah.
It really is sensitive, wow. So, like, you could easily put this in an art gallery and say it's this absurdist piece of art. But it's a joke. It's just like an online joke. You know, like, this distortion here I think is really interesting. I legitimately enjoy it as a piece of music, which I shouldn't. So, from here, next I'll address 100 gecs, music is often seen as a meme in the sense of these memes. 100 gecs, they're very cool. We're going to start off talking about 745 Sticky, and I will play it while I talk about it. So here's 745 Sticky from Dylan Brady and Laura Less of 100 gecs. So first, the song opens with Laura Less's vocals, which have been shifted up in pitch into the auto-tune. That pitch shifting partially comes from Nightcore, but also comes from her own experiences with the voice dysphoria in regards to her gender, and that she doesn't like her own voice. If I can go here. So there's a quote from her there. The other tune sort of is a parody of hip hop and pop. And if you listen, like the kick and the hi-hats here come from hip hop. The kick is a Roland Steer 808, which is a drum machine used in hip hop, and the trickle pattern here is used a lot in like trap, which is the show genre of hip hop. Listen to that. So on an upcoming line, you're going to hear a super saw playing the counter melody, and that's a synthesizer patch coming from the JV8000. It uses multiple detuned saw waves, and it's very common in EDM and subsequently in pop music. After this line here, you'll hear it. The buzzy sound in the background. And this building is to what you expect would be a pretty heavy drop, in the sense of like the electronic dance music drop. But it isn't. The initial drop here is this stinky synth section that plays with the listener's expectations and then slowly goes into the real, even deeper and exaggerated dubstep drop. The samples here are initially here in dubstep, which is a genre of electronic music, but they're even more distorted and exaggerated than normal, like the drum fills and screams. And then they go into these like the stuff like the water drop sample and the dog barking, which are the antithesis of the distorted screams from earlier. And the water drop sample specifically is a reference to a Frank Javsey video that's sort of popular within like music making online community called How to Future Bass. And that water drop sample is sort of a musical Wilhelm scream in sort of like music production in some genres like future bass, and Jeff C was making fun of that. Some other things I want to talk about. 100 gecs, I Need Help Immediately has a really interesting joke about an authentic cadence. Followed by applause. Back into atonal stuff. And that actually is taken sort of almost directly. Oh no, that shouldn't be on that screen. Let's pull that over here and open Chrome. Oh wait, there we go. From John Zorn's Cat o' Nine Tails, and that's at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. If I can jump to there, where he has a similar thing. And Dylan Brady has specifically said that John Zorn is an influence on him. So, and this is a bit more, and John Zorn also, his sort of genre collage of Cat o' Nine Tails mirrors the genre collages of like I Need Help Immediately and Gek 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 Gek, which Gek 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 also has this text-to-speech voice saying Gek 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 Gek, which is a joke about SoundCloud beatmaker tags. People who would make hip-hop beats on SoundCloud would include a text-to-speech voice saying their username, so people wouldn't steal their music and rap over it without crediting them. There are other things like 800 dB Cloud. Oh, I have another piece of audio. I thought I did. I don't. Okay, so 800 dB Cloud makes fun of death metal. There's this like really heavy and kind of disgusting like vocal, like you're just eating the microphone death metal take. And in reference to meme culture, Laura Les originally wanted to title 800 dB Cloud as Yoda hits the booth too hard and fucking dies, in reference to a YouTube video where Yoda does exactly that. It's really great and dumb. And there's another solo track from Laura Les that's important called How to Dress as Human, where the lyrics directly grapple with gender dysphoria and self-doubt. And it's a common theme with music that she has a hand in. Going on from 100 gecs. Oh, I've had How to Dress as Human.
What, like a skirt and like some heels? No.
And she, again, uses the pitch shifting.
Is this how every human
That's the only way she
feels?
records her voice.
Better go with fans. I'm never gonna pass. I should stay
And the concept of passing is a trans person, people view a trans person as the gender they identify. And it's sort of a softer version, but similar in the drum of 100 gecs. Sophie is another really cool artist who does this deconstruction of pop in a totally different way. She opts for more minimalistic pop deconstruction, but more traditional pop production. So here's Face Shopping. Lyrics are about gender dysphoria, specifically in opposition of trans exclusion. The lyrics, I'm real when I shop my face, talking about how, like, even though I modify my body to affirm my gender identity, I'm still as valid as any, like, biological woman. I'm gonna turn this a tiny bit.
My face is the real shop sign.
And it's this sort of minimalistic pop deconstruction, but in a similar way.
I'm real when I shop my face.
And Sophie also pitch shifts her vocals. And she's sort of like, a lot of her forms are very minimalistic forms. Like I compared a song of hers to a Lady Gaga song. They have the same basic form, but Sophie is a very minimalistic version of that form. Another song is Lemonade from Sophie, which is another minimal pop deconstruction. It contains a super saw, which is interesting, and that's something that's just permeated pop in general. So as you would expect, it sort of distills down into hyperpop. This features pitch-shifted vocals and a sort of a very Nightcore-esque beat section that connects 100 gex to Sophie in that sense. So these are heavily simplified lyrics and very minimalistic, just arrangement and production in general. But it's a lot more refined than 100 gex, whereas 100 gex vouches for distortion. Sophie is more traditional pop. She started off as a pop producer, and then increased off her own career when she produced for Katy Perry. She's a Nightcore ex. It's very Nightcore in that everything is special. There's the super saw bass. And that all culminates into replicating hyperpop. So I took all of these ideas and parts and made them into my own song. So here is my song, On Top, and these are all the things I took. And let's listen to this. Sort of a bad mixing practice to add this Spotify playlists I've made with songs related to hyperpop and other things, including the stuff I talked about in this presentation. That's it. Thank you.
We can grab Cullen, but we do have time for maybe a question or two, just a couple of minutes. If you gotta run to class, you can go, but, yeah, Kate.
Do you think hyperpop and meme culture are permanently connected, and as meme culture changes, hyperpop will also change with it?
That's a really interesting question. I think maybe, I'm not sure if it would be called hyperpop at that point. Like, I think hyperpop is directly tied with like this era of meme culture. And I think it may be a flash in the pan genre, kind of like Vaporwave was. Like, Vaporwave was this internet genre, and it came and it went very quickly. Like, you know, with Macintosh Plus Photoshop, it sort of reached its height and then went away. And I wonder if hyperpop might do that. Although I guess hyperpop might just be a description, where it's like caricaturizing pop. And I think that it might be, because it's so ingrained to the internet, I think it will definitely change as the internet culture changes.
So I got, watching this, I got what you meant by post-irony, just layering so many things on top of each other where it's almost not even recognizable anymore. So, and kind of being able to pull out tiny bits from this, how do you even begin to dissect all the different influences that go into this? Because it's almost unrecognizable at a certain point.
I did a lot of listening and studying, and I'm like pretty ingrained in internet culture in general. Like, hyperpop is a very like online genre. Like, you have to be very online in order to sort of understand it. And I just had that background before. But I listened to a lot of, like, I looked through like the top music of the 2010s and listened to all of them to look for all these influences and like can make these connections. And I have a lot of knowledge about production in general. So I'm sort of in the same sphere as the online sphere as these people who make this music. So I have like, I know these references because I enjoyed them and watched them. Like the Frank Jaffsy video, I heard that drop. I'm like, oh, I remember watching that in high school. I remember where that's from. You know, it's not because I looked up water drop sample and found this video. It's, I was in the same community as these people, in a sense.
So very much geared towards a certain subsect of
Yeah.
people. Very specific.
So I was just wondering, the distinction between hyperpop and pop, would you say that that distinction is like the density of references that are just like put into hyper, like is that the hyper part?
I think 100 Gex does that. Sophie, she doesn't reference many things.
Right.
I think sort of the differentiation is that it's a layer further, and there's some hyperpop that is pretty close to pop and might not be called hyperpop because they don't like take it far enough. You know, it's like, you know, the progression of like highly tonal music to slightly chromatic music to atonal music. It's a spectrum, and I think there's a similar thing with pop to hyperpop. So like 100 Gex is sort of like the furthest example because they're just so dense and reference based and, you know, distorted. You know, but Sophie is a bit less further, and like someone like Dorian Electra, you know, or Charlie XCX. Like Charlie XCX has become pop. You know, people compare it to like Ariana Grande, and Ariana Grande is not hyper pop.
Right.
You know, sort of it's, and this, and as this music gets more popular, it sort of becomes what it parodies, which is interesting. Kind of like how meme culture like was originally like deep fried memes were like this underground thing, and they still are, but like, you know, you see the posters out that are making fun of deep fried memes. Sort of the underground becomes the popular culture.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's break it there, run to your next class, and festival attendees, remember, there's some coffee and goodies down in room 17. So, thanks, Cole.